Good evening and welcome to the November 17th, 2025 meeting of the Wayzata Planning Commission. I hereby call the meeting to order. My name is Blake Cameron and I'm the chair of the Wayzata Planning Commission. First on the agenda is roll. I would note that all 7 of us are here this evening and go forward from there. So next on the agenda tonight is approval of tonight's meeting agenda. Does anyone have any questions or changes to tonight's meeting agenda?
No.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Looy. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Elg. Sorry. Further discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, nay? The ayes have it. The motion passes and the agenda is approved. Next on the agenda tonight is the approval of the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was September 22nd, 2025. Does anybody have any changes for the consent agenda or wish to pull an item for further discussion? All right, hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So approved. Severson.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. May I have a second?
Second, Schwalbe.
Thank you, Commissioner Schwalbe. Further discussion? All right, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the consent agenda is approved. Since we don't have any old business tonight, we'll move right into our public hearing item. We have one public hearing item on the agenda tonight, which is a variance for 401 Lake Street East. Director Sharp, is that you? Perfect. Take it away.
Just one moment. I'll present first, and then you can. Thank you, Chair. So yes, it has been a little bit of time, but we're going to hop right back into this one. This application is at 401 Lake Street, and it is a required retail percentage variance. The applicant is Studio BV on behalf of the owner Fishbase LLC, the owner of the property. To give the public a general location of the site, it's located pretty core central of Wayzata's downtown, just across from the depot and at the northeast corner of Manitoba and Lake Street East. The site is guided as our central business district, and you can see that spans quite a bit to the east and west. However, I do want the commission to take note that the zoning district of central business district does not extend nearly as far. That does come up as there were some questions from commissioners and the general public about just how far that district extended and where that retail component and requirement comes in. So if you need me to, I can refer back to this map later in the presentation as well. Within the central business district, let me take one step back. The application is a request of a variance of 39% to reduce the required retail down to 11%. There was an original variance granted when this building was constructed in 2020 that already allows the retail percentage of the ground floor for both the ground floor frontage and area to be at 22%. So the original requirement is at 50%. They have a variance bringing them down to 22. An additional variance would bring them down to 11, or a variance of 39% in total. The principal code section is the one on your screen here that requires within the central business district that at least 50% of the building frontage and 50% of the building ground floor area shall be of a commercial or service commercial use, retail or service commercial use. The existing conditions, we're going to go through this a little bit because you'll see in the staff report, or if you reviewed the staff report, there were some nuances with gross versus net, but we'll get to those. The original proposal back in 2020 noted that there was going to be 2,250 square feet. These are the existing conditions with 1,600 square feet of retail, in addition to the entrance lobby, stair, elevator, and ADA accessible ramp. The proposed plan by the applicant is to split that space roughly in half for an additional conference room space in the northern half of that section, and then brick and linen, the existing tenant, on the ground floor on the southern portion of that of the site. It would split it approximately at 720 square feet, and 740 square feet for each of them. Due to the nature of when the original application was reviewed, it was based upon a gross square footage of the space. So this was original building. It's coming along. The interior walls and design are not fully fleshed out for the interior yet. There are still items that needed to be moved around and evaluated during the building permit process. And during that process, essentially walls, walkways, the lobby, et cetera, were accepted as part of the retail ground floor space. And so what this did was net out some of that 2,250 down to around that 1,600 that you're seeing now for the actual retail square feet. But to ensure that the math worked out with the 11%, the 22%, and all of the other square footages that we were evaluating, staff worked with the applicant to create this graphic that demonstrated that it was within 5 square feet of the original, which was likely due to wall thickness of the elevator, wall thickness of some of the interior walls, et cetera, that took out that square footage. So just to add comfort to the public to know that we're going back to that original, we are making sure that it is in line with what was there, and that this proposal, the math does work out as you're moving through that. The key aspect that both members of the public and Planning Commission sought some clarification on in prior conversations what is retail and service commercial uses. And thankfully, our code provides some limited definitions on that. What I've done in the blue text is take a staff interp or examples of other sites within the community. Again, note that these are a staff interpretation, trying to be general in nature so that we're able to high-level categorize. The determination from staff was that the conference room space was considered more of a office-type use than what it was for a general service, commercial, or retail base or use within the site. And that's largely due to these definitions and then common definitions of what an office space would be used as. The really easy rule of thumb that staff was using with this was, is the front door open to that space? Are they able to, are general members of the public able to walk in and interact in that space without needing to be let in by somebody within the building? And the general use of an office or of that conference room is going to be for specific clients by appointment, but it wouldn't be open generally where somebody from the general public walking in off Lake Street would be able to interact with anybody in that room or that space. And so that's kind of the differential that was made, and it is the difference between the lobby area, which was unlocked this evening when I checked it out. And so you can actually interact with that lobby space and that parking area as a general walk-in as the public. If you need these for your additional discussion, I can certainly come back to them. I do have a few photos to demonstrate what was other retail spots along Lake Street. So I want to go provide those for the commission, let you review some of the examples from Lake Street over to this site and the adjacent properties as well. So starting, kind of core to our downtown and moving westward, we've got restaurants and clothing stores, and then more restaurants, and then more clothing stores. Seems to be kind of a trend along this stretch, with some very boutique shopping along the ground floor principally, and then a lot of times office on the upper stories. You do have intermittent office mixed into that. There are examples, particularly east of this site, where it's largely just office on the ground floor. Some of these, I wasn't able to determine exactly where that had been permitted, as the retail provision had been around for quite some time. In other areas, they were designed, such as the Swans, where the entire building was taken as one large application, and they decided to focus the entire retail into one core section and then do the other, essentially parcel, but other portion of their application as all office. So that site, with the Swans retail all the way over to the Garda, was a single application that came forward just for the Planning Commission's context to determine how that setup had come about. In terms of comments, in the engineering department has no comments on an application such as this. It doesn't affect roadway use or significant parking demand. As I noted in the staff report, the parking requirements for retail and office are identical in our code, and so there is no impact to parking. The neighborhood notification process, we went through our standard process. The applicant notified all property owners within 500 feet on November 6th. The city did so on November 7th. It was posted in the paper as well. At the time of the staff report, staff had not received any public comments. However, I do wish to note that on the table this evening, there is one public comment for the commission. It is included in the official packet in the rear of the room and will be entered into the public record for future planning commissions and city council. To categorize it, they were expressing doubts that this would be a good decision due to the conversion of retail to office. But I will let the commission make their own determinations on that letter. Commission's getting relatively comfortable with variances, but I do want to go through the primary questions to consider, or the provisions for practical difficulty are essentially what they are. These provisions are they would the variance be consistent with the comprehensive plan? Is it a reasonable use of the property? Is it created due to the plight of the landowner or due to the circumstances unique to that property? Would the variance alter the essential character? And economic considerations alone do not constitute a practical difficulty. With that, the actions being sought by Planning Commission this evening are to hold the public hearing and then direct staff to prepare a draft Planning Commission report and recommendation of approval or denial with appropriate findings. In addition, the applicant is present this evening and has a presentation that they would like to make as well. With that, I stand for questions.
Thank you, Director Sharp. Questions for staff? Commissioner Severson.
Okay. So in the packet, it looks like the initial variance request, is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what you were describing, was going from 50% down to 22%.
Commissioner, correct. So the resolution that was the final attachment in the packet was the original variance request approval resolution.
Okay.
It approved several other actions as well, but
Yeah.
yes, it was a variance in 2020 to go from the 50% requirement to the 22%
And
has been granted.
do you know what the reasoning was at the time? Like, what did they want to do with it at the time? And do you know what happened?
Yep. So the practical difficulties are actually outlined in that, but I can go through them briefly for expediency. Essentially, it was due to parking demand. It was due to the fact that the ground floor parking took up such a significant area, and they needed that for the uses above. And it was due to the fact that essentially, with the design of that building, it left very little, and so that lobby area and stairs needed to be the other remaining retail open area for the site. So they were with brick and linen occupying one space. That wasn't identified at the time, but a retail user was identified in that approximate space.
What's the parking? Like, is there parking in the building?
Yes, so
Okay.
let's go back to
Yeah, that maybe is where I was not quite. That's a parking lot back there?
this is all underground parking. There's actually access to another level as well.
Is it public?
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I walked into it this evening. I didn't see that there were any signs that said that they weren't, but I don't know that I think it's meant for their users, not public as in public parking for all of downtown.
Okay.
To clarify.
Yeah.
So in the back of that building, is there a separate garage? Like, how do you get into that parking lot? And is that at the street level?
Yes, so if you were to
Yep, go around the back.
go around this corner, you go back 35 feet or so, and there's an entrance to that garage right here.
Got it.
So whatever this distance is from like here to here, you'd take your vehicle and come around the corner or come this direction, you'd be able to pull into the garage here.
Do you know why they decided to do that?
I couldn't answer what,
Why did they
Their
put, why
parking?
did they put parking in the building versus use the building space for other things?
apologies. They utilized the parking in the building to meet the parking requirements of the building. So the demand for the square footage that they had required X number of parking spaces, and that was a large determinant factor on how much parking they added.
Okay, so then they came back in 2020 and got the variance to have the retail space, and now they're asking to cut, basically cut the retail space in half.
Chair, Commissioner Severson, just to provide a brief clarification, they didn't come back. That was at the original building approval.
No, but now they're coming back today.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
That is
Yeah,
correct.
yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Other questions for staff? All right. Well, thank you, Director Sharp. At this time, I'd like the applicant to ask the applicant to come forward and step over here, and I believe you have a presentation to share with us. If you could please introduce yourself, state your name and address for the record, and your role on the applicant's team.
And then one note, you could use the clicker
Great.
to advance your slides.
Can everyone hear me? Yes. Hi, I'm Aaron Foley. I am an architect with Studio BV. My address is 4525 Pillsbury Avenue South in Minneapolis. This will just be a quick presentation on kind of the general approach of what we are proposing here for this variance. I will note that the current building owner is not the original owner of when this was built, and so this variance is not looking at the building as a whole, but just at the retail space on the ground floor. So looking at existing plan here of what the space is that Alex already shared with us, you can also see the elevation, existing elevation along Lake Street there. So kind of looking at the segments on this elevation of the existing lobby to enter, and then these three bays that are the existing glazing, kind of looking into the retail space of brick and linen. The proposal, as Alex noted, would be to reduce this retail space to the corner lot, so they'll still have frontage along Manitoba, and they will have the far left bay on Lake Street here. The existing lobby will remain, and then the new proposed use, which will be conferencing for Walleye Capital, which is the tenant on the third floor, will take up this kind of middle two bays here on the street frontage. There would be a new restroom provided for the conferencing space, and this conferencing space is to service clients of Walleye Capital who work with them. There's kind of minimal conferencing on third floor to service their needs there. And as Alex went through kind of some of the contextual analysis around on Lake Street, we think with this proposal, we are keeping in mind that the retail is critical to the space. So keeping a retail component here, but there is this mix of office, of professional business along Lake Street, further to the west, with more of the retail further to the east. And that is kind of where we are at this spot. So any questions I can answer at this time?
Thanks, Aaron. Questions for the applicant?
I have some questions.
Commissioner Alg.
Brick and Linen will be reducing their footprint by about 50%. Was that at their request or Walleye Capital's request?
So Brick and Linen currently is having some difficulties on their end. So they are looking to subdivide their space. So this is one solution to subdivide their space. They are still under lease until 2029. So they are looking to kind of shrink a little bit of their footprint so they can maintain a presence there.
Do you have a schematic of the third floor? I'm curious as to why they need 3 new conference rooms
Provide
for
one. I don't know
Walleye
if I have one
Capital.
with me.
If they've been there since 2020 conducting business, I would think that they had sufficient offices and conference space.
I can provide that information to Alex and send it on to you. They have just done a fit out earlier this year of the remaining portion of the third floor. So they had just moved into kind of the other half of that. So they've got quite a bit of officing up there now.
So is there a different tenant on the second floor?
Second floor is Compass Realty.
Commissioner Alg, are you good? Commissioner Schwalbe.
Has there been an attempt by the owners to find more retail space? I understand that Brick and Linen doesn't want all of their retail space, but given that the city wants more retail space, was there an attempt to find more?
My understanding with the owner is that they have reached out to other people. I think with the amount of space that would be left over with reducing Brick and Linen to what they are, it's kind of limiting to an additional retail space coming in. I will note that with the proposal, it is definitely flexible to, in the future, expanding back out to a retail space if Walleye Capital moves on to another space or gets conferencing somewhere else, that this is not a permanent change to that building. It is just a kind of subdivision of that first floor space.
So was Walleye the original tenant there or the owner?
The original owner is Lothenbach. It was the Lothenbach building, and they were the original owner of that space and built that space.
And how long has Walleye been there?
That's a great question. I do not have that information.
Okay.
Can I add on to Bonnie's question? So to clarify, you did engage a Realtor and try to?
Yeah, so there's a Realtor with Walleye Capital, Blake Hastings, and they have been working on kind of trying to find someone who may be able to lease this out, but I think they are having difficulties as well with just the size of what would be left over, the Brick and Linen only containing kind of half the space.
Commissioner Severson.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that? Can you describe the efforts that they've undertaken? Do you have any?
I do not have the specifics on that, so I can definitely get some more information if that's requested for kind of who they've reached out to.
But Walleye wants to use the space for itself, right?
Correct. That's what their variance would be, to use that space for themselves as kind of occupying that space, providing Brick and Linen to downsize what their current space is.
So the Walleye business has grown.
The Walleye business has grown, yes. They've also expanded in the third floor, so they are now taking up the entire third floor. They were previously about maybe 2/3 or half of that. So they've expanded to take up the entire third floor at this point, and they are looking for additional space.
Okay.
And an entity related to Walleye is the building owner, correct?
Yes, that should be Fish Base LLC.
Okay.
So, Walleye's on the third floor.
Correct.
Who's on the second floor?
Compass Realty is on the second floor,
Okay.
and they have the entire second floor.
Anything else for the applicant?
No.
Cool. Aaron, thank you so much for coming
Thank you
tonight,
all
for your time and your presentation.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to turn to the public hearing portion. This is an opportunity for us to hear from members of the public and the community about the requests that we're considering this evening. It's an important part of the process just to allow people to speak and be heard. So any questions that are raised during the public hearing will be held until the end of the hearing and may be addressed by staff at that point. So with that said, I now open the public hearing. If you'd like to speak, please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and let us know if you're connected to the applicant in any way.
Hi, my name is Jeff Sitzloff. We have several properties. My office is 319 Berry, and we have 315 right across the street, 5 Swans. I had originally kind of thought it was all going to, the retail was going to completely gone, which really wasn't very comforting news. So I'm glad to hear that it's just a cut down at worst. And I don't, just to throw out there, I don't think that there's any public parking inside, because that's all for the tenants. Been a great neighbor. It's a beautiful building. I saw the letter that you guys must have got from Anthony Chu. I kind of just say amen to that, basically. Just wanted to note they've already had less there, and I remember when that went through, less retail to make it accommodate, we were pretty supportive of all that. Obviously, I'm biased with Five Swans, because we like retail down on this end, so it's, and get more things down. Hopefully if TCF project ever goes. And we got some condos going in down at 201. And we went through that and gave retail, so we didn't get huge variances there, just to note that. Wayzata has a design and, I don't know, my wife's part of it, it's a retail group aside from the chamber, design district, and it goes from east to west, and it's really nice to have all the businesses all the way from down to the hotel all the way down. That's been growing, it's been very good, but I do like retail down on this end, so that's my bias there. We talked about the 201. They already got less than ideal from our point of view. And I just think that you got to take in consideration, I'm not really telling you what to do at all, but what the right concept for the city is, best to keep the retail presence. And I would think that they could find a shop to take that space. Because Wayzata is a great place for shopping, and the snowbirds go in the winter a little bit, but we found it just a wonderful place to have a retail business, and I'd like to think they could fill it. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Director Sharp, do we have anybody on Teams who would like to speak or has a question?
Not at this time, Chair.
Okay. All right. Well, that said, then I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to commission. And does anybody have any questions for staff or the applicant at this point? Commissioner Schwalbe.
So I'm sure we all did, but I went down there to take a look at the site, that whole block, in fact. And the first large building is a red brick building, Cushman, Wakefield, Morgan Stanley, and a few others. There is no retail there on all of that frontage. So that's 445 Lake Street, the red brick building, and it looks like it's all money managing of some kind or real estate. And then there's 415, which is DM Companies, which is a property management company. I do not believe that's considered retail. Is that right? So that whole building, 415, is no retail on that street. And then there's 407, which is the Wayzata Masonic Lodge. That is not retail. You then cross the street, and you have Five Swans and Merrill Lynch and Vision and Garda. I don't know, is that particular block correct in terms of the amount of retail? The Five Swans, Merrill Lynch, and Vision and Garda? I'm just wondering how we're applying this rule.
Isn't the Five Swans one the one you said that they just focused it all on this end, but it's still the right percentages?
Is that right?
I thought that's.
Chair Cameron. Yep. Commissioners. So there's a couple aspects of some of the properties, not all of the properties that you've been talking about. The Five Swans and the Garda site, they came forward together as one large proposal on two different parcels to utilize their retail percentage or frontage percentage and area percentage all in one parcel or one side of it, but it came forward as a single proposal. Additionally, some of the properties you noted are not within the central business district. They're further west where Ventana and Wayzata Blue and some of those sites are actually in an office district, so that starts to transition outside of the central business district the further west you go. The further east you go, they are good examples of other sites that have some office on the ground floor. I noted during some of the photos that I was showing, it can be difficult with some of these sites because they've been office for quite some time to see how that had been approved. They aren't recent buildings, however. So in recent construction and in recent reviews, they have consistently been applying that 50% retail, and that has been a consideration in all of those applications.
So are you saying that some of these buildings, like 445 Lake Street, 415, 407, were they built before there was the requirement, or was that just not being applied at that time? Because that 445 is a very large building, and there's no retail at all.
Commission, do you know which one's 445 in terms of the names? Sorry, we have,
It's got Morgan Stanley, Cushman, Wakefield. It's at the beginning of the block. It's the very first building, and then you work your way down to 401.
let me look at the
Did see
photos.
it earlier.
Well, I don't, well,
You're talking,
yeah, that's the
This-
Masonic.
yep, that's the Masonic, and this
And
one, I've been unable to determine. I was trying to do some research as to how this one ended up with office on the ground floor. Are you talking east or west of this site? East.
Yep.
So there is some significant office mix in that one. There's also dental clinics on the upper story. There's a mix of different uses within that building. How specific building permits ended up and where the individual uses on that ground floor were determined, I haven't been able to fully determine. Possibly, I don't know. They may be legal nonconforming uses, they may be before the code. The code was put into place quite some time ago, so it looks like that code section was amended around 10 to 11 years ago. They could have been there long before that without looking at the individual tenant spaces for each tenant. And then sometimes if an office use was replacing an office use, it would be allowed to go into that same space. It can get very difficult to track whether they're, and I'm hesitant to label them as a legal nonconforming. I would need to look individually at each office space and their square footage before I could feel comfortable stating that.
Because there is not a whole lot of retail down there. It would be nice to have more retail down there. I hate to give something up when we could actually use so much more of it. I mean, I understand that what happened years ago is just what happened years ago and can't necessarily fix that. I just was wondering how it came to be, if the rule didn't come into place until more recently or not. But I did read this note by Mr. Chu, Dr. Chu, about how pleasant he finds it shopping in Excelsior, downtown Excelsior. Your main street is nothing but retail restaurants all the way up and down. And it is charming. It is a wonderful place to go. We don't have necessarily both sides of the street all the way on Lake Street. But we have given up a lot of charm by having so much business and not enough retail. That's my belief. And so I'll
Thank you, Commissioner
turn it
Schwalbe.
back.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant?
Are we doing questions or are we doing comments?
That was sort of a little of both, but I was trying to keep us in the questions part, and then we can pull it back to discussion.
Okay.
I have one more question for staff. I can't tell on this map, if the TCF is developed, is that considered retail? I can't see on the color, is that,
So Chair, Commissioner, that's actually considered a PUD. So in the PUD zoning district, it sets its own requirements. For much of that, we have utilized the underlying zoning district for that in the past, but the uses have generally been prescriptive to the PUD. So the PUD for that site was that it was a TCF office space. The proposals that the Planning Commission and City Council have recently approved did require ground floor retail in sections of that building.
that's what okay.
Any other questions for applicant or staff?
Yeah, Director Sharp, are any of there is a gap today from a retail standpoint. Once you buy ice cream, you don't have a lot going on until you get down to, brick and linen. But is any of the properties between there up for redevelopment? And if they were to be redeveloped, we would apply the rules given the C4 for retail on the first floor, correct? That's two questions.
Chair, that is correct, yes. If they were to redevelop, we would require that they meet current requirements. Additionally, if they were to do substantial interior remodel and removal, we would be evaluating during the building permit process to ensure that if it's existing office, it would likely be able to stay existing office during that building permit process as a legal nonconforming or potential legal nonconforming. But if they were to remove that space and gut entirely, that could remove that status, and then we would require a retail user. And 50%.
Thank you.
Commissioner Severson?
Can you go back to how much the leftover retail space is, that picture? Yep. And do we have any current retail that's about that space that you know of? Like, is this really a small space, or is this Thirsty Whale or Ben & Jerry's, or is there anything comparable to this space that you know of?
Size-wise?
Yeah.
So Ben & Jerry's is probably going to be a little bit bigger because they've got a back room. Thirsty Whale, I haven't been inside of yet. I know that I've only heard that they're relatively small. This is a pretty small retail space. There's no room for a back room in this. There's no room for additional inventory storage. This would be very, very boutique. What's on the shelf is what you can purchase within the store retail. It is how it is set up currently, to note that. There is no current back room or other storage spaces. They may have other spaces that are available within the building, but they haven't made staff aware of that.
And currently brick and linen takes up that whole,
The entire
Whole footprint.
1,600 square feet.
that's in that, yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions for staff or the applicant? All right, discussion.
I have a number of thoughts.
Let's hear them. You've been elected to go.
All right. First of all, make one thing clear. Brick and linen is really not retail. It's a service business. It's architecture and interior design. The product may be for sale on the shelves, but it's largely displayed to show some of their design skills. So there's probably a small element of retail there. To Alex's point, there's no room for backstock of items for sale. I've been an astute observer and student of retail in small towns for more than 30 years, and I am sympathetic to the retail owner who is, in this case, sounds like they're having difficult challenges and are happy to reduce their size so their rent is reduced. I'm sympathetic to building owners who pay significant property taxes and want every square foot leased so they get maximum revenue from that property. And I understand small cities wanting as much retail as they can have. Excelsior is beautiful. I agree that the retail is awesome. I can guarantee you most shoppers do not walk the full both sides of those streets, with the exception of maybe the holidays or some event that they have. Getting people to walk from one end to the other of a street as long as this is a rare occasion that people would do that. You recall we've already had one space, Presbyterian Homes want to convert retail spaces to rental homes because they just can't get retail in there. At the same time, I think a city should stand firm on preserving spaces for retail. I'm concerned that if Brick and Linen were to leave, they'd have a very difficult time finding a retailer to take that small of a space without space for backstock and so forth. So all that said, I'm sympathetic to the challenges of retail, but I think it's important for Wayzata to maintain its desire to have retail, and I would not be in favor of reducing it to this small of a remaining retail space.
Thank you, Commissioner Elg.
I'll provide a couple, two more cents. I think the city in 2020 made sure that the space was usable for the tenants by reducing significantly the amount of space dedicated to retail while maintaining a frontage on Lake Street so that the average shopper wouldn't understand that that any retail was given up, but rather just that there's a couple of or one or two quaint shops that would still be able to fit into that space. I think that with a view of what's coming, with hopefully the TCF building being redeveloped, and anything else that might come down the pike, keeping a retail focus would be key. So I'm not in agreement with having half of the space just be walk-in conference rooms as opposed to some way to do retail.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Looy.
I'm happy to make some comments. I'm going to go back to the criteria in which we're supposed to kind of look at these projects. And, you know, when I look at, does the property owner have a circumstance which is unique to the property, which is not created by the landlord? And I guess know that this property doesn't, you know, pose any, you know, unique or unusual circumstances. Then we go, the next one is a variance reasonable. I'll go back to Commissioner Elgin. Other projects that we've had, he so eloquently has said, reasonable is in the mind of every one of us. It's different for every one of us. So I don't know, in my mind, it's reasonable. Is the plight, oh, I already went through that one, sorry. Is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? And I don't think it is. I think we're all kind of feeling that little angst that we do have in our comprehensive plan and our zoning, the retail there for a reason. Would the variances alter the essential character of the locality? Even though we don't have a lot of traffic down there for retail, I think we owe it to the retail that's there and to the future projects that we try to keep as much retail as possible. And so I would have a hard time approving this, but I'm interested in listening to the other commissioners as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Planton.
I guess I would follow on with my fellow commissioners. I agree. I think it's nice to have retail. We've already given them a 50% break, and it's nice to have something besides Five Swans to go down there, and hopefully in the future we'll have more retail, because I believe the applicant, but once we give them the additional 50%, I find it hard to believe that we'll go back if they move out to more retail.
Thank you, Commissioner Ankeny.
So I agree with all of these statements, and basically, I think we have to take the long view here. The long view is, what do we want for Wayzata down the road? And it isn't to little by little give away more and more space to non-retail customers. So I would not be in favor of voting for this, voting aye on this.
Thank you, Commissioner Schwally.
Yeah, I would agree with everyone, and particularly because if you cut this space in half and give brick and linen less space, then there's even smaller retail space left over. You know, there's already a variance on here to have even less retail, so I agree with my fellow commissioners that I'm afraid that we're just gonna kind of keep chipping away at retail space, and all of a sudden downtown Wayzata becomes a office space. So I'd like to preserve what little we have left.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. I think I'd echo what I think I've heard from all of you. The one thing I did hear, I just wanted to take a moment to commend. I heard you guys say that staff worked with the applicant on aligning on language and square footage, and so I know that sometimes that can be difficult, but thank you for coming together and working together on that. I think that's great. I think the proposal as it sits right now, you know, if we look at the comprehensive plan and Wayzata's vision for a charming downtown area, I don't know that losing retail space isn't supports that, right? I think that you know, if we want to have a vibrant downtown, it's got to be a mix of professional and retail, and not just restaurants, right? But you know, some smaller boutique shops or you know, whatever, I think. And I'm not sure what our current issue is with some of our vacant retail, but I'm aware that there is some, but I don't support going away or reducing what little retail space we have currently down there. I struggle with the reasonable piece of this. I think their ask is reasonable. As your business expands, right, you need more space. I think that part of it's reasonable. I think the piece that I struggle with is wanting to cut an already small piece of retail space down even further in an area that doesn't have a lot of retail space right now to begin with. So and I think, you know, I think the one that sticks out to me just in terms of standards and questions is, would the variance alter the essential character of the locality? I think I've heard, you know, we've talked a little bit about it. I think that's a really small retail space that's going to require a really small customer if we grant the variance and the tenant moves on, trying to fill that. And so I do think that alters the character, right? And you're taking and shrinking basically at least the Lake Street side by 2/3, just from a visibility perspective. You're going from basically 3 glazings down to 1 of, you know, what's visible as retail, and everything else would be office space. So I don't find that I support it, and I think I've heard all of us kind of say something similar, so it feels like we're pretty aligned on that. So all that said, I think our next action then is a motion to direct staff to prepare a draft recommendation, reported recommendation of denial with the appropriate findings. So if anybody would like to make that motion. I guess I can too. I'd move that we direct staff to prepare a report recommendation of denial with the appropriate findings for the variance request at 401 Lake Street.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Severson. Further discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the report and recommendation will be on our consent agenda on our next meeting, which will be in 2 weeks from tonight. Aaron, thank you for coming as well. Just take a moment and public, thank you for your comments. Jeff? Next item on the agenda tonight is other items. Director Sharp.
So we've got the review of development activities, but first I'm going to go through the fact that we have distributed the long-awaited Planning Commissioner's Handbook.
compelling read
members
right
now.
there.
So all of the planning commission members have that. Feel free to peruse over your Thanksgiving break. It'll help you fall asleep with the tryptophan. In terms of development activities, most of our projects right now are buttoning up for winter. So everybody's making that mad dash that you see in Minnesota come late fall to get buildings as far along as possible. With Wells Fargo, you will see sections of that site development be able to be closed up, and you will see interior build-outs starting to occur. Throughout the winter, though, you will see winter activity, heating blankets, et cetera, to keep the ground thawed for them to be continuing some of that exterior work. So do expect to still see some disruption through that project. Closer to home, right here, adjacent to our corner, they are making the valiant effort to get that building closed up before winter, and it will be a race against time. Most likely, they will work to get the building closed up, even if they do hit winter conditions. Their end time for that project is approximately next spring for full occupancy. And I just walked by this evening, and I'm right now unfortunately blanking on the address, the site that's just east of 401 Lake Street by a block or so that's been under construction.
The old Caribou bookstore?
Yes. Yes.
Carish
Thank
Corner?
you. Carish Corner. Thank you. I still can't get the address off the top of my head right now, and I had it written down. They are probably not going to be closed up or ready for full winter conditions before snow flies. They're still preparing some site work. There have been some delays that we're trying to work through with them in terms of their schedule, because we were really hoping for sidewalk to be open in time for full winter. It's starting to present some level of doubts, as they are having a hard time getting some of their materials is actually part of it. With that, if there are any questions about specific development, happy to answer questions. And then the Planning Commission schedule, I can kind of step into that one as well.
Just quick question for you. Update on Moments?
Sure.
The site's kind of an eyesore.
So,
Moments?
Chair Cameron, Moments has paid their fees, so they have their approvals that have extended through 2026. City police and staff are trying to work with the applicant on securing the site. What their intention is moving forward at this time, the best determinant the city has is that they did pay their fees to extend their approvals. So at this point, we haven't heard anything active from the applicant about a timeline. They have been communicative in the fact that they've paid their fees, but haven't wanted to be proactive with staff about communicating next steps.
So when you say they've paid their fees for?
Apologies. So Moments was past due on some of their development fees, and they sought an extension to their approvals because they hadn't acted on their approvals within 1 year of their approval dates. City Council placed a condition that they pay past due fees by October 30. City fees, yep. Their city fees by October 31st, 2025. They did so. And so the extension went to November 1st of 2026.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? So next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight on December 1st. We'll be in December in 2 weeks. It's kind of scary.
And then December 16th, and we have items scheduled for both of those agendas.
Okay, perfect. All right, I think that's it then. So thank you, everyone, staff, public, for tonight, and that concludes our agenda. May I have a motion to adjourn?
Planton, so moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Planton. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Looy. Any further discussion before we adjourn? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, the motion passes, and the November 17th, 2025 Wayzata Planning Commission is adjourned.
15.